Welcome to the Week 9 Sports Betting Picks video here at FTN Bets, otherwise known as Betting with Benny. Make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. This way you're updated anytime we drop a new video. And a special hello to all our friends watching on the Game Plus Network. The first game we're going to talk about here tonight is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Houston Texans. Philly is 7-0, the last remaining undefeated team in the NFL at the moment. They're coming off a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers 35-13. Houston is 1-5-1 on the season, coming off a 17-10 loss to the Tennessee Titans over the weekend. So when I break this all down, I get Philly should be favored by, I think it's 11.5 points is the number that it comes out here for me. FanDuel and DraftKings have it a little higher at minus 13, and I understand why. I wouldn't lay 11.5 with Philly here, but I get why the books put it at 13, because if the books made it any lower than this, then they were going to start having a lot of money coming in on the Philly side. So they had to make sure that the value was on the side of the Houston Texans here. And I think that's what they did by making this minus 13 now. So is it enough value to get me to bet on the Texans? No, probably not. I would definitely need more points there. But I think the point of why the books made it a little bit higher is that they're trying to keep you from betting on the Philadelphia Eagles in this situation. So for me, I think I would avoid the Eagles here, but I'm also not going to be betting on the Houston Texans. Next game up is the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Chargers are 4-3 on the year, coming off a bye. Atlanta is 4-4 on the year, coming off an overtime win over the Carolina Panthers, 37-34. They are living on the edge in that game as well. They gave a touchdown to tie it up at 34-34. Carolina missed the extra point, and Atlanta went on to win in overtime to kind of keep the streak alive that they have. This Atlanta team is better than people are giving them credit for. They're good in all aspects of the game, and they don't turn the ball over, which is a big thing here. When I break down the number on this game, I do get the Chargers should be favored. I get the Chargers are probably about 5 points better on the neutral field, factor in home field advantage, so I get Chargers minus 3. That's pretty much what FanDuel and DraftKings have as well. So I'm kind of on market on this game. Not really a lot of value here. I think minus 3 is the right number. Next game up, the Miami Dolphins taking on the Chicago Bears. Miami is 5-3 on the year, coming off a win over the Detroit Lions, 31-27. Chicago is 3-5 on the year, coming off a loss to the Dallas Cowboys, 49-29 here. I get Miami is about 6.5 points better on a neutral field. After you factor in home field advantage, I get, Miami minus 4.5. Chicago plus 4.5. That's what they have on FanDuel and DraftKings. So I'm on market here. Not really a lot to bet on. Next game, Carolina and Cincinnati. I have, Carolina is 2-6 on the year, coming off that loss to Atlanta in overtime that we just talked about on the missed extra point where they had a chance to win in regulation. Cincinnati is 4-3 on the year. They play on Monday Night Football against the Cleveland Browns. So we're going to have to wait and see how that game turns out before we do anything there. So Cincinnati is favored. My number comes out to Cincinnati minus 10. DraftKings and FanDuel only have it at 8.5 here. So I do think we have a little bit of value on Cincinnati. I like the idea of taking Cincinnati minus 8.5 with my number being minus 10. But the other thing I love here with them being a home team at 8.5, you could tease this down to 2.5. And I know the Wong teaser legs haven't been great this year, but this is a very good spot to tease them down to 2.5. You get it through the 7, you get it through the 3. Cincinnati minus 2.5 as a teaser leg. One of my favorite teaser legs for the week. And like I said, I do think we have a little bit of value at minus 8.5 there. So I wouldn't even mind laying that number with Cincinnati. As long as they come out of Monday Night Football with Joe Burrow still walking upright and everything else good, I think there's a little bit of value on this game. So we'll have to see how that works out. Next one up, the Green Bay Packers against the Detroit Lions. This one we don't have lines yet for on FanDuel and DraftKings. Part of the reason for that, Green Bay 3-4, playing on Sunday Night Football right now against Buffalo. Very likely to be 3-5. Buffalo is beating up on them pretty good here in the third quarter of this game. So you never know, they could come back, but doesn't look very likely the way this game is going so far. Detroit is 1-6 on the year, coming off a loss to Miami, 31-27. This is what Detroit did last year. They lost a lot of games, but they stayed in a lot of games. And that's something that they're being able to do this year. So just keep that in mind. When I break down the numbers on this game, I get Green Bay better by about 5 points on the neutral field. So Green Bay minus 3. Like I said, there are no lines up for this game yet. If it is, Green Bay like minus 3, minus 3.5, I'm probably not going to have anything on it. If it's below 3, I'd be interested in Green Bay. If it's above 4, that's when I would probably start looking at the Detroit side, just because, like I said, they are a team that does keep a lot of these games close. Next up is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Vegas is 2-5, coming off a beatdown at the hands of the New Orleans Saints, 24-0 this weekend. They looked absolutely horrible, and hopefully they'll be able to get things back on track. Jacksonville is 2-6, coming off a loss to the Denver Broncos, 21-17. When I break this game down, I get the Raiders should be favored here. I get the Raiders favored by half a point. DraftKings has this game as a pick'em. FanDuel has the Raiders favored by 1.5 points. I mean, again, there's not really any value, especially when you're talking about numbers down here, at this level. I think on DraftKings, where it's a pick'em, it's listed as money line -110 at the open here. So there's no value there really either, because you would want it at least at even money, even though I do have a slight lean to the Las Vegas side here. If it's not at least even money, there's really no reason to take it here. So for me, this is going to be another one of those games that I just pass on here. Like I said, I'm pretty much on market. There's about a 1.5 difference between the two books, but when you're talking about points down there by 1, anything below that -3 or +3, it's not really a big deal. You can see it switch one way or another, unless Las Vegas gets to above even money, like maybe +105 or something like that. I'm not going to be willing to bet on them, and I would rather be on the Las Vegas side than the Jacksonville side if I was just picking a winner in this game. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts taking on the New England Patriots. Indianapolis 3-4-1 on the year, coming off a loss to Washington, 17-16. Sam Ehlinger got his first start in that game. Washington had a late drive down the field, led by Taylor Heineke and his favorite receiver, Terry McLaurin. They wound up getting down to the 1-yard line. I forget how they got in. I want to say I think it was a Heineke, was the Taylor Heineke quarterback sneak, I think is how they actually won the game. But, McLaurin's big catch down the field is what set it up there for them. New England coming off a win against my New York Jets. They were lucky to get a, roughing the passer call on a pick 6 to end the second quarter. And then they wound up getting a field goal out of it, coming out and scoring in their first drive of the third quarter, then getting a couple field goals to wind up winning the game. And they're also lucky that Zach Wilson is a horrendous quarterback, which we'll talk about more in a minute here. So when I break this down, I get New England should be favored by about 4.5 points. Currently, it's 6 points on FanDuel, 6.5 on DraftKings. I think that's a few too many here, even with Ehlinger as the quarterback. So I made about a 3-point adjustment to the Indianapolis Colts with Sam Ehlinger as their quarterback there. Maybe that wasn't enough. Maybe that's why my number is 1.5 to 2 points off. Maybe Ehlinger is actually 5 points worse than Matt Ryan being in there. I think that's probably too many, but I do think that at least 3 was the number that I needed to make this. So while I do have a little bit of value here on the Indianapolis side, it's not something I'm super confident in because, like I said, it's one game of Sam Ehlinger as quarterback. I would guess that he's probably a little bit better next game. I would also guess that this is a rookie quarterback going up against New England, and they're going to throw some things at him that he hasn't seen. So I think he's not really a rookie. He's technically in his second year, but he hasn't really played. So he's kind of a rookie there. I don't know, man. Like I said, I think there's a little bit of value on the Indy side based on my numbers. But again, my numbers right now are more subjective than quantitative because we only have one game of Sam Ehlinger as the quarterback there. So maybe Sam Ehlinger is that much worse than Matt Ryan that this number should be closer to 6. But I think it's a little bit of an overshoot here. So for me, there's value on Indianapolis, but not something that I'd be willing to put a big bet on. Next game, we can talk about the Buffalo Bills taking on my New York Jets. The game is in New York, so that's the one good thing the Jets do have going in their favor. Buffalo's 5-1, probably going to be 6-1 after they finish this game against Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football here. The Jets are 5-3. They're coming off that loss to New England, 22-17. Like I said, I don't care if you look at the stat sheet and you see that Zach Wilson threw for 350 yards or something like that, and 2 touchdowns. The 3 interceptions is what really killed them, and that's what killed the Jets. And this is my problem with the Jets right now without Breece Hall. The Jets are built to play with the lead. They got a very good defense. They had a very good running game when Breece was there. The running game was okay this weekend. It wasn't great, but it was obviously a step below without Breece Hall. And you can't rely on Zach Wilson to win games if you're the New York Jets. It's not going to happen. He's just not that good. So when I break this down, I get Buffalo should be favored by about 8.5 points. There are no lines up for this game since Buffalo's still playing on Sunday Night Football, but I got to be honest, I don't think my number is even big enough. I'm expecting this to be maybe like 11, with it being in New York, or technically in New Jersey. But I mean, anything below 11, I would probably be willing to lay on Buffalo here. I think, again, Buffalo's the number one team in my power rankings here. The Jets are a team that everybody's excited about because they were 5-2, but I still have them as a below average NFL team, and I have them as even more below average now with Brees Hall being hurt, and Corey Davis being hurt, and some of the things that are messed up on the offensive line with some of those guys out. So really, if this was double digits, I would think that's fine. If it's anything less than double digits, I wouldn't think it's enough. And again, I mean, it would probably have to be 14 and a half, 15 for me to even be interested in the Jets. And even then, I wouldn't feel great about it. So let's see. What do we got up next here? We got Minnesota taking on the Washington Commanders. Minnesota quietly 6-1 on the year, coming off a win against Arizona, 34-26. They played very well in that game. Washington, coming off that big win against Indianapolis, 17-16. Again, we talked about Taylor Heineke and Terry McLaurin, the magic that they have, again, 2 weeks in a row leading those comebacks there. When I break everything down here, I get Minnesota about 5 points better on a neutral field, factor in home field. I get Minnesota should be favored by a field goal. That's exactly what they are favored by here. Washington is +3 on both FanDuel and DraftKings here today. So, that's really the way I'm looking at it. I don't really think there's a lot of value in this game. Again, if I had to place a bet on it, I'd rather be on the Minnesota side than on the Washington side. But the way my numbers break down, they break down exactly the way this is. That's going to wrap it up for the 1 o'clock games here. We don't have a lot of 4 o'clock games. I think there's only 2. And then there's also a Sunday night football game and a Monday night football game. So we're going to take a quick break here on Betting with Benny and be right back with the late games for Sunday and Monday here on Betting with Benny. Welcome back to the Week 9 Sports Betting Picks video here at FTN Bets, otherwise known as Betting with Benny. Make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button. This way you get updated anytime we have a new video dropping, not just the new videos from me here at Betting with Benny, but we also have a lot of other content over at FTN Network that you guys can check out. Chris Meany does his Mean Street show. We got Jake Seeley doing All In Football. We have the NFL betting show, which you guys need to check out every Friday. Kyle Murray is absolutely on fire. Taylor Mathis has been on fire too. I think they both went 3 for 3 this week. So that's 6 winners that they gave out there as well. You get a rotating cast of some of our FTN members and some of our friends over on the site. They break down every game. They go over some of the best prop bets. They go over all of the information you need to be a profitable bettor every single weekend. So definitely make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and definitely make sure you check out that NFL betting show every Friday, 5 o'clock here on the FTN Network. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about here, like I said, for some reason, they set it up this week so there are only 2 4 o'clock games, which makes absolutely no sense to me. Part of the reason I think is because we have a lot of teams on bye. So hold on, let me give you all the teams on bye here. We have the Cleveland Browns are on bye. The Dallas Cowboys are on bye. The Denver Broncos are on bye. The New York Giants are on bye. The Pittsburgh Steelers are on bye. And the San Francisco 49ers are on bye. So again, you take those 6 teams out. There's 26 other teams left in the NFL. That's going to give us 13 games. We got 1 on Thursday. We talked about all the games at 1 o'clock already, and we got 4 games left to discuss. So let's get into them. The first one is going to be the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Seattle is 5-3 on the year. They're coming off a big win against the New York Giants, 27-13. That game was pretty close throughout, and then Seattle kind of blew it open towards the end of that game there. Luckily, DK Metcalf, everybody was worried about whether or not he was going to play. He played. He looked fine. He caught the first touchdown of the game. I think he had 5 or 6 catches, as did Tyler Lockett, who actually dropped 1 touchdown that he was wide open for, but wound up catching the second one that came in there. So this Seattle team is really good. I actually had to make some adjustments to my numbers for them because I think I was a little bit too low on them, but I don't want to overdo it here. So honestly, even when I break everything down here, I still get Arizona slightly better. Even on a neutral field, I get Arizona about 1 point to 1.5 points better. And then when I factor in the home field advantage, I get Arizona -3.5. Now, this is something I wanted to talk about, though, because Arizona under Kingsbury has been a horrible team at home. So some people would argue that you don't even give them a home field advantage, or you give them less of a home field advantage than you give some of the other teams out there. I never really subscribed to that theory because part of the home field advantage thing to me is that if you look over the course of a large sample size of games, teams playing at home do tend to perform better than they do when they're on the road. And it's quantifiable, especially when you look at the games that are played between teams in division, because they play each other once at their home field and once at their away stadium. So this way you can kind of look and say, okay, well, if home field is worth this many points and they should have won this by this much, or they should have won that by that much. And again, if you're looking at one game, one season, one matchup between two different teams, you're not going to be able to get the number. The number that I use for my home field advantage number, which is closer to 2 than it is to 3, because 3 is what, had been the standard in the industry, but is actually a little bit high. It was made by basically taking what the difference between what teams do on their home and away games there and kind of factoring it out. And when you factor it out, like I said, that number comes out closer to 2 than it does to 3, which is why I use the standard 2 here. So even though Arizona over the course of time hasn't been that great, I still use that -2 number on them because you're basically trying to smooth it out. And that's what I'm doing here, is trying to smooth it out. So again, when I smooth it out, I get Arizona -3.5. Now, the reason why I dug so deep into this and kind of wanted to give you guys the background here is because Arizona is currently -2.5 on FanDuel and DraftKings. So if my number is -3.5, again, I know it's only 1 point of value, but that's a big 1 point when you're going from 2.5 to 3.5. That means that you would get the field goal win by Arizona on your side here. So I do think there is value on the Arizona side as long as you're getting them under that -3. I like that Arizona -2.5 number there. I think it's even money, -110, so standard juice on both DraftKings and FanDuel. But if it was juiced down on either one of them, -105 or something like that, even like a -108 or a -107, I would think that that is a good number that you guys should be looking to take. So I like Arizona -2.5. I wouldn't lay them at -3 if it gets up to that number. So if you are interested in it, get in on Arizona now at that -2.5. I do think there's a little value on that number there. The other 4 o'clock game is going to be the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot to unpack with this game here. The Rams are 3-4. They're coming off a loss to San Francisco, 31-14. I don't think that's a bad loss. I think San Francisco is a very good team. I have them in the top 5 or 6 of my power rankings, and probably going to be moving them up this week after watching what Christian McCaffrey was able to do there. And they did that without Deebo Samuel too. So this is a very, very talented team. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 3-5, coming off a Thursday Night Football loss to the Baltimore Ravens. They were up early in that game and then just kind of gave it away. 27-22 was the final score of that game there. So a couple things we have to do here. I'm making an adjustment to Tampa Bay because they have a little bit of extra rest. So I bumped them up from 1.5 to 2.5. The Rams I have as a 2 right now. So that would make Tampa Bay about half a point better on a neutral field. Factor in home field advantage, then we would get that number up to 2.5. But there is a major development that we need to talk about here. And that is that at the end of that last game, Cooper Kupp went down with an injury. So Cooper Kupp, again, a lot of times looking at like a wide receiver or a running back, even a star wide receiver or a star running back, they're not worth much to a spread. Quarterbacks are really the thing that moves the spread. All these other skill position players really don't. But there are always exceptions to the rule. And I think Cooper Kupp is one of those exceptions to the rule. If you take Cooper Kupp off this team, this is a very pedestrian offense that does not have a lot of playmakers. Cooper Kupp kind of disguises a lot of deficiencies that this offense has. So if Cooper Kupp doesn't play, I would probably move this line about another 2 points, which is big for a skill position player, which would mean that I would think Tampa Bay should be favored by about 4.5. So again, if you want to take Tampa Bay below 3 right now, I do think there's a little value there. FanDuel has this number at 3, but it's juiced down. It's like -3, -105. Whereas DraftKings has it at standard juice -110, but they have the number at 2.5. I like the DraftKings number at -2.5. That would be where I would want to take this number here, because I do think that without Cooper Kupp, this number would be 4.5. And I think even if Kupp does play, if he's not 100%, this number should be at least a field goal. And even if he does play, my number was 2.5 anyway. So you're basically getting a coin flip in worst case scenario. So I like being able to take Tampa Bay at below a field goal. I know how bad they've been this year, but honestly, they still grade out really well in my projections here. I still have them as a very good defense. I still have them as a very good offense. Are they as good as they've been in the past? Absolutely not, but they're still an above average team here, even though they haven't really looked like it this year. But again, they're losing a lot of games to other good teams, with a couple exceptions that I know people are going to say, but that's the way I'm looking at it here. So that brings us to the Sunday Night Football game, which is the Tennessee Titans taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's see if this one is depending on the quarterback here. So Tennessee is 5-2, coming off a win against Houston, 17-10. Good win for them. Nothing we could argue about. Derrick Henry looked great. He ran for over 200 yards here. The quarterback there was the rookie Malik Willis. If Willis is the quarterback, I would get Tennessee at -1. If Tannehill is back, I would get Tennessee as about 2 points better than a league average team. And the reason that makes a difference is with Tannehill in there, I would think that the line on this game should be -9. With Willis in there, I think the line on this game should be -12. Kansas City, I have as the number 2 team in my power rankings. They get a little bit of a bump here because they're coming off a bye, so they have extra rest as well. So, like I said, I would get Kansas City -9 at home if Tannehill's the quarterback, -12 if Malik Willis is the quarterback. So, what did the books do? Because they probably got the exact same numbers I did. They decided to split the difference since we don't know what's up. So, you look at DraftKings, DraftKings has -11. You look at FanDuel, FanDuel has -10.5. Well, those are the two numbers that would be directly between my 9 and my 12 here. So, again, I think I'm on market with the books with the way they are. If Malik Willis is the quarterback, I would probably think there's value on the Kansas City side. If Tannehill's the quarterback, I would probably think there's value on the Tennessee side. And I don't think we're going to find that out until a little later on in the week. And by the time we do, I think that's the way that the line's going to move as soon as we have one way or another. So with Tannehill, I think this line's a little bit too high. With Willis, I think it's a little bit too low. The books decided to split the difference, which I think is smart for them to do on an open here. And really, until we find out that information, there's not much more we could do. Kansas City should win this game. They should win this game easy. But again, we need to get that information before we know whether or not there's value on one side or the other. And that brings us to the last game we have to talk about here. That's going to be the Monday Night Football game between the Baltimore Ravens and the New Orleans Saints. Baltimore, 5-3 on the year. They played that Thursday night football game against Tampa Bay. They won 27-22 right there. That was a good win for the Baltimore Ravens. Although you do have Mark Andrews banged up, and we're going to have to see how that is. Because much like Cooper Kupp, he's one of the few tight ends that could actually be worth more than a half a point or so to a spread there because he is the number 1 wide receiver. Or I shouldn't say wide receiver, the number 1 pass catcher on this team. For the New Orleans Saints, they're 3-5 on the year. Coming off a win against Las Vegas, they played very well, 24-0. Defense looked great in that game. The offense moved the ball. It was 3 Alvin Kamara touchdowns. Mark Ingram was hurt in that game as well, which is also something to keep an eye on because it would mean even more touches for Alvin Kamara, which is something that we like to see. When I break this game down, I get Baltimore should be favored by about 2 points. DraftKings and FanDuel have it at -3. I don't know. I don't really want to lay a -3 with Baltimore. If it was under 3, if it was 2.5, then I'd be willing to lay it, even though my number was 2. But I really don't want to touch it here at -3. So I'm probably going to be avoiding it and staying away from this game. And that is going to wrap it up for our look at the Week 9 NFL opening lines here at Betting with Benny on FTN Bets. Remember, you can get over to FTN Bets. Use promo code Benny. You'll save 20% off on any account that you sign up for. It also works over on FTN Daily and FTN Fantasy as well. You can save 20% with that promo code Benny, BENNY. Get all the charts, all the graphs, all the analysis from all our experts in all the different sports. It is by far one of the best values out there in the market right now. For my producer, Quan, this is Benny signing off for another episode of Betting with Benny here on FTN Bets.